Amateur Girl and Fanboy present The Big
Again,
Bad
shot
Glass Movie Review.
Broadway could do it.
is shot in supposed to be New York City, but shot in a studio in Hollywood. So but yeah, it was an experiment that worked incredibly well. You got these incredibly great movie stars, very small cast, except for the neighbors, and you get the the husband and wife next door. That's a bit amusing. There's a lot of amusement in it, right? There's a lot of wit and humor, even in this kind of a horrifying story. And then in the parts that are meant to be thrilling and tense, they were, even though I knew exactly what's going to happen when she goes into that guy's apartment. That was intense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even
Yes.
for the day, it was intense. So, and they've remade this. Christopher Reeves remade it when he was in his wheelchair. I saw it. I didn't, nothing like this. And then Woman at the Window with Amy Adams on Netflix. I've not watched this as a direct, remake of this.
It's good, but not any totally different. Though.
Oh yeah, it's not this. So this is made by a genius and a master filmmaker, and was coming into his own. He'd been making movies since the silent era. Hitchcock started out as an artist. He was an engineer, trained engineer, but he started out in the movie business in Germany, writing the subtitles on or whatever they call them, the little cards that they show for silent movies. That's how he started, writing those little titles. And then he got into assistant directing, and then he's been doing this off and on since probably the mid-20s. So it's 20 years he's been making movies. And then he gets a Rear Window. And he made a lot of great movies before this, but I think Rear Window is really a standout, even for Hitchcock. I don't know why. It's just he experimented with, he likes to experiment with ideas. And like with the Birds, he didn't want he'd always played with the idea of no music in a movie. And he never could talk any producers into letting him do it. Finally, in the Birds, they let him do it. There's no music in the Birds at all. It's just the sound of birds. That's it. That's all you get. You never knew that, right? And you don't really notice it, which is amazing, right? And
I do love that film.
Yeah, and he did this one in the 40s that I like a lot called Lifeboat. Remember, we're coming out of the war, and even in this movie, they're mentioning World War II quite a bit. Their buddies on the airplane and everything during the war. And so during this era, you're always referring most of the men in the audience had World War II experiences, so they're always going to have World War II thrown in there. But this movie called Lifeboat was about a ship sinks, somehow a Nazi and a bunch of regular passengers end up in a lifeboat together, and the Nazi's the only one who really knows how to navigate, or he's a sailor, and so the Nazi has to be put in charge. So the whole movie is just shot in one little lifeboat. Again, it's an experiment to see if he could do it, right? And he did not want music. I kept listening. Oh yeah, they had music in this one too, but I guarantee he probably didn't want music, in this one either.
Well, he had a lot of music. There was the opera singer who said,
oh yeah. I mean, that's the natural music, but I mean, just the incidental music that the composed that was in there. But I guarantee he probably didn't want that. He probably wanted the sounds of the street and the incidental music, the music that comes from the apartments or whatever, and none of this dramatic music that the Hollywood likes to use. But finally with the Birds, he was able to get away with it. But I guarantee in Lifeboat was so funny, he didn't want any music, and the story goes that he said to the composer, I think it was Bernard Herrmann,
Get it together,
great
fanboy.
musical Hollywood composer. He said, well, they kept fighting about using less and less music. He said, there's no orchestra in the middle of the ocean. Hitchcock said that, and Bernard Herrmann says, who's just as smart as he is, says, there's no camera either. Touche. There's no camera either. So that kind of like put him in his place, right? And but he did fight against that. he just did not like he liked to have the natural sounds and, kind of like, and they did use that quite a bit in this movie, like you said, right? You noticed it. Yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
And I noticed it too. I had my headphones on. So I got a nice big sound and my big curved screen. I don't think I'd seen it that way since I was a kid. I saw it probably in the early 60s. It's already probably been out for quite a while. And I went to a theater as a kid with some other people and we saw Rear Window. It was the first time I ever saw it. And all I remember, of course, as a kid was the murder mystery, right? The all this other stuff was, like you always say, it's kind of lost on me as a child. But as an adult,
I'm surprised you didn't remember the girl putting her brassiere on.
I did very well. Miss Torso. I remember her name too. Well, that's what I said. When I did see that, I go, wow. Oh, you mean as a kid? The 60s were pretty loose. But there were a lot in the 60s, a lot of stuff went on that doesn't even go on now in movies, right? And Hitchcock has a lot to do with that. But this was in the 50s. So by the 60s, it was a little bit,
Yeah, old hat.
The old hat, yeah. But boy, I've in the 50s, that must have been really raise some eyebrows, but I guess they were pushing the envelope. He's always done that. He's always pushed the envelope. Again, the Grace Kelly kind of, she does fit the high school blonde that he liked to use, and Grace Kelly and Cary Grant, was it Takes a Thief? Takes a Thief, yeah.
Get it together, fanboy.
Yeah, It Takes a Thief. That's a good movie. You'll like that. You like that one a lot. It's usually on Netflix, but if for some reason you might want to check it out and see if it's on there. We can review that someday. It's a totally different kind of movie. It's about Cary Grant plays an international jewel thief living in Monte Carlo, and I believe this is where she met when she was making this movie in Monte Carlo. Met her future husband, who was king of Monte Carlo, or Monaco, whatever the heck they call it. You know her story, right?
I do.
And she became the princess. But she basically drank herself to death, which is sad too.
Really?
She had a stroke. Yeah, she drank heavy drinker, and she had it when she was out driving. I think with her daughter. Did her daughter? I think her daughter was on the engine, and she had a stroke while she was driving. She was like 51.
I think she was 52 actually, but
52. Well, so heavy smoker, maybe drinking, maybe not happy, being in a Crystal Palace or whatever. She wanted to make movies, but they wouldn't let her. She was supposed to make another Hitchcock movie, and I can't remember which one it was. But his I don't know if it was a Hitchcock, might have been another movie, but whatever movie it was, the king wouldn't let her do it because the people would not like it that their queen or princess or whatever she is in a movie. Whatever. And the only reason he supposedly he married her was just to bring more. And she said she did love him. Bring more. How to get off of this Grace Kelly thing, because he has a fascinating story, right? It was to bring more recognition to Monaco, because it was kind of a poor country and they need more tourism. And so get a movie star in there, that help more people come in. Anyway, crazy. She should have stayed in the movie business,
yeah, she should have. But then again, she still may have been an alcoholic anyways, so.
Yeah, and she said there's a couple of quotes by her about how she said there is a lot of darkness in Hollywood, right? A lot of crazy crap goes on there, and that's been going on since it Hollywood started, right? Yeah. I mean, I think Aleister Crowley went there in the early 20s, maybe even 1919. He came to Hollywood early on, and Aleister Crowley is a very famous Satanist. And he said that this is nothing but cocaine users and witches in this town. Even he was shocked. Even he's shocked by Hollywood, and I don't think it's changed all that much, right? But
thank God I wasn't pretty enough or talented enough. They would have eaten me alive.
Yeah, it is what it is. Either you can handle it or you can't. You know, if you're super
No.
talented, you can kind of like Spielberg or some of these guys.
Yeah.
Even though I've heard a lot of stuff about him too, but you know, they can float above it, right? So,
Yeah.
but anyway, Hitchcock is another one. He had his personal life was not the greatest, but you know, he stayed out of Hollywood too. He didn't like being there either.
Mhm.
Nobody likes really being in that town, I don't think. Only, you know, wannabes, I guess.
Yeah, wannabes. Like,
You
yeah.
know, and he lived up there, like I said, near me, you know, Los Gatos. That's where he lived. And just would
Mhm.
go off, and that's why he ended up making a lot of movies in the Bay Area. You know, The Birds was made up there, Vertigo was made there, and I think those are the two big ones. This one, of course, is just was made in Hollywood in a studio. But other than that, it's this is like one of the, I would give it, you know, it's a 4-star movie, 100%. I mean, you know, there's no, I mean, you can argue that it's boring. I mean, some people could. I think they give it 98%. So there's 2% did not like it for whatever reason. I don't know who those people are, what their reasons for not liking it would be.
Hmm.
One, oh, here was my little theory about, let's say, a movie, since we sometimes we're split on movies. I think when I grew up, I grew up on television and these old movies. I think it's our twitch rate on our eyes. I grew up with these old movies, and then I grew up on the movies of the 60s who were very influenced by European movies during the 60s. The 60s was like the revolution of the new movies. It was the beginning of the revolution. And the 70s was the end of the revolution with all those big movies that came out in the 70s, right?
Hmm.
And then Tarantino's been mining that since, you know, his entire career, right? So I think our twitch rate of our eyes, I think that, you know, you see things that maybe a little differently because of the way, you know, you grew up in the 80s where everything is got music videos and all this stuff, right? So your twitch rate is completely different. And you know, that's just a theory.
Yeah, could be.
You know, people look at things differently. Other than that, if you've never seen Rear Window, it's one of the must-see movies. That you know, one of those 10 movies maybe that Hollywood put out that has to be seen. Rear Window would be one of them. You know, Citizen Kane, Rear Window, which is funny because Hitchcock has a bunch on that list. It's like Hitchcock, again, he was a philosopher. He would love to experiment with film, always come up with a new idea and then just see how it goes. And then he would work with he wasn't a script writer himself, but he would work with a script writer and, you know, cinematographer and all that stuff, you know, the classic Hollywood way of doing it. That was the great thing about getting to Hollywood. You get all these great talents to work with, right? You know, just makes you look so much better. So if you got some good ideas and can put them on, and, you know, can talk people, let you put them on film, you know, world's your oyster, right? And then if you make money on top of it, the world's even more of your oyster. Anyway, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, anything else to say about Rear Window?
No, thank you for recommending. Ciao.
Yeah, so in the 80s where everything is got music videos and all this stuff, right? So your twitch